I started meditating about 30 years ago. I learned my first meditation techniques from my first martial arts teacher. So the single-pointed mind meditation technique is a very powerful concentration technique for meditation, and it involves concentrating on particular chakras. And the chakras are energy centers in our energy body. Not only do you develop concentration and the ability to hold your mind still, once you become adept at this particular meditation technique on the chakras, you can raise the Kundalini energy. Hey, what's up, my friends? Thanks for stopping by. Let's get started, shall we? You know, that reminds me, meditation is like death. When we die, when we go to sleep, and we wake up, and we're reborn into a new life. We're reborn into a new self. So every time we meditate and we go deeply and we're able to become still, when we go into that stillness, we dissolve the known part of ourself. We dissolve the part of ourself that is the obstruction to clarity, the obstruction to happiness, the filtration system of thought, of identity that we perceive through. When this part of ourselves dissolves and we come back to our regular awareness, this is the metaphorical ego death that occurs. So meditation prepares you for death. In fact, every single time you meditate, you should be prepared to die. And what is death but change? And of loss of self, loss of the known. So when we enter into stillness, when we become still, when the known active parts of ourselves become still, there's an essential washing away. There's an essential purification that takes place at that time, at that moment. There is a transformation that occurs at that moment, at that momentless moment. So, what's going on, my friends? Welcome back. What is it? Day 28 now of 30 days to raise your frequency. 28 days in, 3 more reps left. And every time we repeat the technique, we get better at it, we get stronger at it. It's no different than going to the gym and working out. The first time you went to the gym, the first time you started working out, or the first time you did anything, you were new. You were unaware of the complete process 100%. But then you went through the process and you became familiar with it. And through the familiarity, you knew that what you could derive from it, what results you could expect from it. Meditation is very similar to this. This is why I am a big believer in promoting mastering one technique before we branch off into other techniques. It's a good idea to have a technique that you stick with, that you master. It's no different than picking up, let's say, an instrument. And before I jump to piano, well, maybe I should practice just on guitar for a while and master all the chords and scales and nuances of playing guitar before I jump on to playing piano. Now, they're both musical instruments. They both make beautiful music, but they operate very differently. So different meditation techniques are quite similar, and that all meditation techniques are good. It depends on what you bring to it. It depends on your level of understanding of where you want to go with the technique. And oftentimes we don't really know where we're going until we get there, or until we're shown. So this is why I'm a big believer in sticking with one particular technique and mastering it. Because you will develop a certain proficiency with that technique, and you'll know that if I approach it in a certain way, that I will derive specific results. And this is the best way to gauge your progress. If you skip around to a bunch of different techniques, this is a mistake that a lot of beginners make, a lot of newcomers make, is they skip around with different techniques. And this is probably okay in the beginning to try to find the one that works for you. But once you find one that works for you, it doesn't matter what it is, as long as it works for you, as long as you get the results you're looking for. Remember, meditation techniques are just a vehicle to take you from point A to point B. So the goal is to get to point B. It doesn't really matter how we get there, as long as we get there and we can keep getting there. So, but once you find that one vehicle that works for you, you know, maybe it's a Mercedes, maybe it's a broken down Honda from the 80s, maybe it's a Tesla, maybe it's a motorcycle, maybe you like to go fast. The means of the vehicle doesn't matter as much as whether or not it gets you to the destination effectively, in a way and in a manner that suits you. And this is why there are so many meditation techniques available. This is why there are so many paths to what you could call God, so many paths to liberation. There's so many different paths to Rome. All roads lead to Rome. Probably because the Romans built all the roads in the beginning, right? At least that's what history tries to tell us. Who knows? So, once we find a particular meditation technique that we like, it's definitely a good idea to stick with it, practice it, and master it. Because what that will do for you is it will give you a good degree of determination of whether you're getting better at it or not. Because if you keep trying a new technique all the time, of course you're not going to get better at it. You'll have good days and you'll have bad days, and that's no matter what. Good days and bad days come for many reasons. Ultimately, there are many different influences that are influencing us at any particular moment. From our own particular choices that we make, from the foods we eat, the thoughts we think, the actions we take, the people we choose to be or not be with, the environment we choose to be or not be in, how well did we sleep, etc., etc. A lot of this is karma. Karma is not necessarily just cause and effect, but on a certain level, it can be similar to cause and effect in that what we do provides a certain, our choices that we make give us certain results, certain outcomes, and those particular outcomes are one facet of karma. But another facet of karma is memory. Why is your body generally the same body that you had yesterday? It's because on a DNA molecular level, DNA is actually something that is similar to a computer memory, in that it has an electromagnetic field. All of life has an electromagnetic field. Within an electromagnetic field, electromagnetic fields store information. They store memory. And this is exactly what karma is it's the memory that we keep over time that creates our condition. So we have a memory of who we are, a memory of what we've done, who we've met, etc., etc., all the actions that we've done. So the more esoteric, the deeper esoteric meaning of karma is actually closer to memory than it is cause and effect. So there's a certain karma to different things. Everything has its own kind of karma. So we're born into this world with a certain degree of karma. And this karma is a memory, not necessarily of who we were or where we were in past lives, but more along the lines of what we did. And what we did, our choices, our actions we took, determine the level of consciousness that we are born with. So at a certain, obviously when we're born, we don't have much access to our full potential. It's all in a seed form. And that seed form would be similar to, say, like the DNA. There's etheric DNA, which is where the karma is stored. And yo, what's up, Ash? How you doing today, my man? So this karma from past lives acts as sort of a memory bank. Again, not necessarily of who we were, where we were, but more along the lines of the choices we made that determined our level of wakefulness. The choices that we made which determined our level of awareness, of consciousness. How conscious did we become? What was our level of awareness in our past life? This is held in a certain memory potential, karma, that carries on from lifetime to lifetime. So this is why you can change your karma with things like meditation, because you can, through choice, through free will, we can change our karma based on the actions that we take. A very simplistic way of looking at this is, let's say we go around in this life, and when we were younger, let's say, and we did a bunch of heinous acts, and we were a criminal, we hurt people, we were very negative, and we accumulated a certain mind state that was based on all of those actions. It determined our perception, what we thought, our view of the world, our point of view, our perception was altered by our actions. And we had this particular mind state. And let's say at a certain point we woke up, we realized we had an epiphany. We had a close encounter with maybe you had a near-death experience, an NDE. And the NDE woke us up because it brought us out of our normal consciousness for a period of time, and we saw beyond the veil. We saw into a higher dimensional plane, perhaps. Some believe that the near-death experience, they see a vision of light or whatever it might be. And then they come back, and then they're changed miraculously. This is a very similar process that happens when we meditate. If we meditate deeply, we can change our karma. And so this person who had the near-death experience gave up that life of crime and wrongdoing and harming others, and they radically changed their life choices. They began to meditate. They began to surround themselves with positive people. They began to serve others. They began to perform selfless acts. And this, over time, changed their karma, because they began to make a change in their actions, which began to make a change in their perception, and it started to awaken them. And when we have moments that bring us out of our regular awareness, like a near-death experience, or a profound meditation, or maybe a powerful psychedelic experience, these things can actually change our karma. They can actually wash away. Because what happens is when we enter into higher dimensions, it is like a death. There's a death of the old self. What is the self? The self is merely, when we talk about the self as an individual, we're merely just an accumulation of, our past deeds. We're just a perception based on karma. Again, we have an identity that we were given a name, a history, a memory, experiences, and all of this ties into who and what we think we are, and therefore we make our choices, the things we like, the things we don't like, the groups we gravitate towards the ones we avoid. This kind of thing. And then all these different things create this persona, this person, this personality of who we are. Where astrology comes in is it will determine from past lives, and probably numerous past lives, of what your personality will be in this life. So astrology is a great way to determine what your karma is from past lives. It's the reason why you're a Capricorn. It's the reason why your moon is in a certain sign. It's because you're born at that particular time. It's a determination. It's a determining factor, karma, and it's the reason why you're born into a certain set of parents. It's the reason why you're born into a certain with a set of certain tendencies. Your tendencies don't necessarily become awakened until a certain age, usually around age 12, usually around, it has to do with the cycles of Jupiter. There's a 12-year cycle, 12, 24, 36. There's various transits that take place. So astrology is very much tied to understanding your past life karma, your tendencies, the reasons why you're the way you are. But the good news is that all that can be changed with one meditation. Now, that one meditation may not be the very first time you meditate, but it could be today. Why not? It depends on how deep you go. It depends on how much you're willing to let go. Because really, we're just holding on. We're holding on with dear life to who we are. We believe we are someone who we are, and so it's very concrete. And then we have the pride of who we are, what we've accomplished, and this personal history, or maybe we have shame in what we did and what we did when we were younger. Whether we're proud or shameful, all of that can be erased. And every time we move into a higher plane, every time we move into a higher consciousness, there's a little bit more of the new you and a little bit less of the old you. And this is a good thing. This is the good news. This is the actual transformational process of meditation. Yes, there's a certain degree of change that takes place when we discipline the mind on a practical level, on a thought level, on a mental level. We can reorganize the mind. We can improve our concentration. We can improve our memory. We can improve the sharpness of our perception with meditation immediately. But the real miracle, the real miraculous transformation occurs when we can go beyond the known. And the known is ourself. The known is our own little island of who we believe we think we are. And this is all tied to the memory of what we've done, our past experience, etc., etc. And we are who we are today. I am this guy. I've got this name, this history, and etc. So when I go into meditation, if I'm not willing to let all that baggage go, you'll only go so high. Okay, there's a great analogy out there that meditation is much like riding in a hot air balloon. It depends on how much weight you can let go, how much baggage you can release will determine how high you go. And the height is also synonymous with how deep you go. So when I use words like higher frequency, it's not necessarily a hierarchical, low frequency, high frequency type of scenario. It's more relational. It's more total. It's more of a deeper, it's more of a beyond. So don't necessarily think in terms of hierarchies, like better or worse, but think more in terms of going beyond. How far beyond can we go? And, to the degree that we can let go of our old self will be how much we can be renewed from our meditation. So it's very important that when we do move into the higher stages of meditation, once we gain proficiency over a technique, this will allow us to utilize that technique as a platform to dive deep. And a good analogy would be to dive deep into an ocean. You can swim on the shallow level, very surface level, or you can go as deep as the ocean will allow you into the infinite fathoms of multidimensionality. And ultimately, there is a source of all things. In Buddhism, they call it Nirvana. Imagine for a moment that there is a seed of all, a seed form, the seed of life, that there is a source of all things. Not only a source, but also something that sustains, something that everything returns to, something that everything is connected to, the womb of all. Imagine for a moment that this exists. And it does. And this has been named, numerous names in Buddhism. They call it Nirvana. So the idea is that the more you can let go of who and what we think we are, which is mainly based on thought. You know, if you can literally stop thought completely, then you will be completely plunged and submerged into the deepest depths of your being. And remember, we are a universe unto ourselves. How could it not be? How could we not be life? We're merely a leaf on a tree, a mirror image of the whole that is a child of the universe that replicates over and over and over again. So, this is what I seek to do in meditation every time I go into meditation, is to go beyond the self, the limited self, to go beyond my individuality. Easier said than done, granted, but when we know where we're going, it's much easier to get there. And it's in our hands. This is why I love meditation practice, is because it's not determined by anybody else but our own discipline, our own practice. Yes, we can be motivated. Yes, we can be inspired. Yes, we can be taught new techniques. We can be taught, how to go deeper, how to overcome certain, stuck areas, ways of living to improve our meditation. Of course, all of this stuff can be handed down and instructed. But the true change only takes place within. It's not a belief. It's a transcendental experience, is when we actually can transcend, when we actually can go beyond the limitations of self. This is when we go into the depths of the mind of the universe. And then when we come back to our regular senses, we can see that there's been a change. We can feel that there's been a change. The old us has died. The new us is reborn. And the universe, which births and brings forth and sustains all things, is something that we need to trust in. It's something that we need to have faith in. That it is good. It is benevolent. That if we jump in, dive headfirst into that water, that we have faith that we will come back out, we'll come back up to the surface, take that first breath of air, and look at life in a brand new way. And so this is the reason why I meditate. And hopefully that makes sense to all y'all out there. What do you say we get started with today's meditation? It is day 28 of the 30 days to raise your frequency. So we've got 3 more repetitions of this technique. Every single time you do a repetition, it's important to try as hard as we possibly can to go beyond the efforts that we made in the last repetition of the meditation. This is how we get better. This is how we get better. Alright, so let me pull up my Bluetooth here. Make sure we're all connected to things. Okay, so you guys ready to meditate? So we're doing what's called the 5 steps to stillness. This is a meditation technique based on single-pointed mind concentration. What it's aiming to do is overcome the limitations of the limited mind. The limited mind is based on thought. The limited mind is limited in its ability to perceive things because it filters your perception through thoughts. And thoughts are like a box. We're taught thoughts. We usually think through a language. We're thinking through words, labels, symbols. Language is based on symbols. So when we look at something, we've already got a label for it. We've already got a name for it. We've already got a judgment for it. And all of these preconceptions and notions are something that we need to go beyond and something that we need to move beyond in order to become pure again. And it's that dip, it's that dive into purity, the purity of pure consciousness. in that when we come back, we're reborn, we're renewed. And it's a new perception each and every time. And we do this repeatedly over and over again until all past karmas are washed away. And eventually one day, there's nothing but pure consciousness in our mind. There's no more limitation. And this is the idea behind enlightenment and liberation. Okay, my friends, there's the Dharma talk for today. Hopefully that made some sense to you. And if not, feel free to drop a comment below with any questions. That's what I'm here for. I want to help you guys and share with you what I know. Alright, so let me pull up my music. And let's get started. With the 5 steps to stillness, we got 5 different steps, beginning with step 1. In step 1, we'll be doing gazing, and we gaze on a yantra. The yantra is available for download at the top of the group in the announcements section. I've got my yantra printed out right here in front of me. And when we gaze at the yantra, we're using an open-eyed method of focus and concentration. What this does is it warms our concentration up. It helps us get ready for the rest of the meditation. It's easy to gaze at a visual object, which is why I placed this first in the meditation. So with an open-eyed gazing, we will stare at that central dot of the yantra. When thought comes in and out of the mind, simply ignore it and keep steady focus, like a laser, like a heat-seeking missile on a target, on that central dot of the yantra. Breathe naturally. Here we go. Now that we've warmed up our concentration in step 1, we move on to step 2. Focusing on the navel chakra, begin by closing the eyes gently. Place the fingertip about an inch below the navel, an inch below the belly button. Press gently into that spot and feel the slight pressure of your fingertip pressing into that area. What we want to do is focus on feeling the spot, feeling the energy around that chakra. The navel chakra is the chakra of power. Once we've locked on with our awareness on that spot, go ahead and remove the finger and continue to hold your awareness, hold your attention on feeling the navel chakra. You may feel some heat or a tingling sensation. Try to hold that in your attention. Breathe naturally and hold still. Now move your attention up to your heart chakra in the center of your chest. Step 3. Place the fingertip in the center of the chest. Press gently and feel that spot. Bring your full awareness, your full attention, the total you, to that one spot. Hold it there and feel the energy. The heart chakra is the chakra of love. Open up your heart and feel love. Once you've locked on with your attention there, remove the finger and continue to feel that spot. Now move your attention up to your third eye chakra, between the eyebrows and slightly above. Gently place the fingertip in that spot. Feel the slight pressure of the fingertip pressing into the forehead. Lock on to that feeling with your attention. With your full awareness, undistracted attention, hold on the third eye, feel that spot. Remove the finger and continue to hold steady and still. Now, step 5. Take that deep dive into consciousness. Let go of everything. Let go of all tension, let go of all control. Complete surrender. So, what usually happens in step 5 is that we reach some sort of a perceptual plateau. The idea is to surrender and try to move beyond any plateaus that arise. An example of a perceptual plateau might be that in step 5 we're being very still. And even though we're becoming more and more still, we'll still notice that there's sort of a block or a ceiling, like a wall, that we can't go beyond. We're still thinking, we're still looking through our eyes, or our attention is sort of locked up in the frontal lobe area. So every time we notice one of these kind of perceptual plateaus where we seem to settle into comfortability, that is the time when we want to just become absolutely still. And when we can still everything, there might be a moment of realization where we see that consciousness is not dependent upon us. That consciousness is already present. It's ever present, eternal. And so this is the idea with step 5, is that we want to continually move past these perceptual plateaus that we will discover within ourselves. These perceptual plateaus are also part of the habitual tendencies that I mentioned. And this is something that we'll cover more in depth in the group coaching program that I'll be launching on May 1st. The group coaching program is going to be a monthly subscription membership community. I'm going to call it Concentration to Consciousness. This sort of outlines what we're doing here. And we'll be dealing a lot more with the transcendental nature of this meditation technique. And meditating to silence, which, as you can see at the end, when we turn the music off and we're in silence, there's a little bit more chance of sensitivity within our awareness to move beyond these cleverly hidden obscurations, these cleverly hidden plateaus that we discover within ourselves. And eventually we transcend one after another until there's no more plateau. So looking forward to seeing you there in the Concentration to Consciousness group. I'll be releasing more information about how to subscribe to that membership within the next few days. And thank you so much for joining me today, my friends. It's always a pleasure, and we'll see you tomorrow for day 29. Take care.